Martin Pawlitschek. I'm a geologist with 25 years plus minerals exploration experience around the globe, a lot of it in gold, some more advanced assets as well in the private equity space. I'm now CEO of Sanu Resources, which just recently listed on the CSE in Canada, and we're about to embark on our maiden drilling program.
Fantastic. Well, you better tell us where you're going to be drilling, because we're looking at, I think, 3 assets that you've got. But actually, before we do, just tell me, 25 years experience. What's your experience in Africa, and what's your experience in terms of running companies?
Okay, Africa. I first came to Africa actually for a short stint at the time with BHP Minerals in 2000. It was supposed to be in South Africa for 3 months. I haven't really made it back to Australia since then. I spent most of the last 22 years in Africa, and some of it in and out of Africa. Initially, Southern Africa, places like Angola, Botswana, DRC, quite a few years in the Congo. And then went over to West Africa in 2007. We had an asset there, Sabodala Gold. Sabodala Gold Mine or prospect at the time. There were no resources. We drilled that out and put it into production in just over 3 years actually with an Australian junior. I then stayed on and managed their exploration assets for some time, and eventually the asset ended up in Teranga Gold, and now Endeavour. So it's still stronger than ever actually. That was my West African debut, so to speak, and I've since then been back for many projects.
Okay, but have you run a public market company before, or have you headed up a company before?
Not had a full-time CEO role before. I've been in the junior space a couple of times. Initially for an Australian junior that explored for gold. I was their, so to speak, COO. I was running all the in-country stuff in the Congo there for a number of years. And then for a junior company as a VP exploration manager. More recently, I was involved with E79, Victorian Gold. I was interim CEO there until we found Patrick that we put in there, and he's steering the ship now. And I couldn't really commit to that one either because I'm more Africa focused, and I had the Guinea projects in the background that I've been working on for some time. So
right, and that's I think E79 we know through Vince, who's your chairman. He, I think,
exactly
right. Okay, so why don't you sort of give us an idea of like who else is then supporting you? And obviously we know Vince, but who are the other names that we should be aware of?
All right. Also on the board, from a public company point of view, is Vince Sorachi, who's our chairman, based over in Vancouver. We have Gavin Cooper on there, a CFO. He's got a long history in the public company space, also based over in Vancouver. We obviously have a legal team over there as well. And then we have a number of advisors that are, well used to the Canadian space, and also another non-executive officer.
Right. Okay. So you picked up these 3 assets. Your experience is Africa. Your knowledge is Africa. So how did you get a hold of these assets? Where do they come from? What do they cost you?
Okay, mainly a bit of grey hair and a lot of time. There were the 3 founding partners there, and we were actually hunting around for some good quality gold assets in West Africa since 2017-18. We formed a private company initially in Senegal, applied for some of our own ground, were not successful, and then started scouting around the region for deals. Of course, there's lots of deal flow. Most of the time, the expectations in terms of the commercial terms are unreasonable, or there's little, hard data to justify, a more serious commitment on those. Then we came across these 3 assets in Guinea, and they actually had some historic data. The vendors had put some of their own efforts and money into it to find some initial gold anomalies, and they were quite commercial in terms of they understood what a market can take in terms of a deal. So we managed to negotiate a fairly attractive earn-in deal on all 3 permits there, and from there we went out to look for some seed funding, and we got that in Canada, and then listed the assets in Sanu just very recently.
But what do you do when okay? I understand the process there, but what data do you base this on? Isn't it a case of, oh, anything will do, we just need to get some assets into a cash shell?
Not really. Anything will do. I mean, you can pick up plenty of Birimian with no data and just some structure all over the place. There, we've actually had a substantial amount of surface geochemical sampling and lots of indications of artisanal gold mining as well. And the available historical geochem data showed some very strong kilometer scale gold trends, and the untested by trenching, untested by drilling, no auger run over them. So that was very attractive to us. I mean, that's a big jump start. It takes you usually 12, 18 months to get to that stage. Maybe not that many dollars, but a lot of time. Yeah.
The artisanal bit, I understand. I think that's very, very common, and also in South America as well. It's yes. Some big clues there, but West Africa is well known for that. But the geochem, you mentioned geochem, and I've got to ask you about this because you frame it as termite mound geochem. What is that?
Well, it's a surface sampling technique. I mean, when you're faced with a fresh piece of prospective ground, the typical way to attack it is with soil sampling. But that's not that effective in areas that are extensively laterite covered. And in West Africa, you have a lot of laterite cover. It can be half a meter up to 20 meters thick, and it can be sort of semi-transparent in terms of picking up the signal of the bedrock underneath. The termites help you quite a bit because they tend to burrow down to at least where they get some moisture, some water, and more often than not, that means they're going down to the saprolite, which is the weathered bedrock where you expect to find the primary mineralization. And they bring material up from there. So it's one step up from a soil sample in that terrain, and it's very quick and cost effective to collect them. It's quite fine material. It tends to be most of the time saprolitic material, and they can do it very quickly and then analyze it. So it's a cost-effective tool to screen out, to screen large areas and define the key trends, the main trends.
Right, and there's 16,000 of these termite mounds that were.
Yes, right. That's right. Yeah, we've inherited a lot of historic data, but we've also complemented. We did some infill termite sampling, and we had to extend some of the grids. They didn't cover the entire permits, just partial. But all in all, we have something like 16,000 samples now. So it's a very nice systematic database we can work off.
Okay, so you mentioned earlier that there's a lot of this kind of Birimian land package with permits in place, but I think based on what you're saying, your inference being that some of those may not be of the quality that you would want to see. So, what gives you confidence that what you've got is of the quality that you think can become something?
We have on all three permits we have a systematic coverage of termite mound geochemistry, gold geochemistry, and that data is defining kilometer scale gold trends quite consistently from line to line. You're getting the trends confirmed. So that's a very, very encouraging start for us.
Right. Okay.
We have the scale, and we know there is gold there. So.
Okay, it comes back to that. Okay, so what are you going to do with this? Okay, these are drill ready targets, or how do you frame it?
Not just yet, because the termite mound geochemistry it defines your trends, but there's a bit of dispersion laterally, so the targets tend to be a little bit large to systematically test all of it with, say, RC or diamond testing, drilling. That tends to get too expensive. So what the next stage is typically, and most of our peers follow the same approach. Once you have the trend defined in your termite mound samples, you come back with an auger drilling program. That's a fairly low cost, fairly fast tool to just drill through the overburden material, the laterite, the transported material, and sample the top of the bedrock, the weathered bedrock, systematically get samples across that within your anomalous corridors. And then you kind of get to the root of where that gold is leaking out from in the primary bedrock. So you're defining the gold-bearing structures with that. And then you can come back and test these a bit deeper with RC or diamond drilling.
Right. Okay. But all of the above cost money. So how much did you raise
Yes.
on the IPO?
6.5 million, and we've been hard at work last 12 months or so.
Yeah.
Auger drilling is completed now. At least the first pass auger drilling is completed now on all 3 permits, and we're releasing those results as we speak. We've still got a few batches of assays coming back in, so we're now really rapidly approaching the stage where we want to put down RC drill holes.
Right. Okay. And relatively cheap there. I mean, what is it per meter cost in Guinea?
For auger drilling?
Yeah.
Auger drilling tends to be around the $12-14 mark, straight to the driller. And then with your overheads and assays, you're probably looking at $20 to $30. And then when you go to RC drilling, that's probably around the $50 mark, $40 to $50 to the drilling contractors, sometimes a little bit cheaper. With your add-ons in terms of field management, field logistics, and assays, you might end up with $80 to $100, depending on, if it's a large program, you'll obviously have scales of economy.
Right. Okay. And this is, so you reckon, I mean, these relatively shallow drilling, right, is what you're saying.
Yes.
So lots of, in fact, how do you go about planning the drill program in terms of spacing, etc.?
Okay. With the auger drilling, we initially go in quite wide, 200 to 400 meter spaced lines across our geochem trends. And then along the lines, we're quite relatively tight, maybe 25 to 50 meters maximum. From that, we pick up the trends, and then the wider parts of the trends, we'll get back in with RC drilling. And typically, there'll be other data that we layer over that. In some areas, we have a little bit of outcrop where we might have rock chip samples that give us encouragement. We might have some larger workings opened up by the artisanal miners, which also sample very nicely with rock chips. So we'll typically plan initially 1 to 3 lines across the zone, maybe 100, 200 meter spaced lines, and then 50 meter spaced holes, 2 or 3 holes on the line on the first round, and aim to drill through the saprolite, which we expect to be quite thick there, maybe 70, 80 meters, and drill through that, and then into the fresh bedrock, basically.
Okay.
And see what it looks like, in a drill hole. See what the widths are, see what the grades are.
Right, and you talked about that. So how many meters of auger drilling do you think you'll do this year?
We have already completed over 35,000 meters, and we might get up to 40 by the end of the year on the auger drilling. And then the follow-up on that will be several RC programs. For the rest of the year, we've planned out at least 2 programs of 5,000 meters each, spread between 2 permits. And then early next year, we have another 5,000 meters scheduled on one of the permits that's a little bit further to the west at Bantambai. So between now and let's call it end of February, we're looking at 15,000 meters of RC drilling.
Right. Okay.
On top of the auger drilling that we've done.
Right. Okay. And that can all be done within the budget, within the funding that you've raised today. Yeah.
Yes, we have funding to cover up to the 15,000 meters of RC drilling.
Right. And then how do you go about building something like this? Because you got 3 projects, three different assets that you're going after. Do you start to? Is the goal to work out who the favorite child is, and then start to lean towards that in terms of the financing, or do you think that you will still continue to need to drill out on all 3, equitably? How does it work?
How does that work? That's a good question. It will depend on the results that come back from the first round of drilling. If we get something that looks very strongly like a discovery, we'll definitely bias the drilling somewhat to that. I fully expect, though, that we'll get some decent results from all of the permits, so we will have some follow-up on all of them. But the one that looks to come to a resource the quickest will probably be favored.
Right. Okay. Because that's how the market works, or that's the best bang for your buck at this stage of development, because obviously you're still a small company at this point.
Best bang for the buck, but of course, if we get rewarded with by our shareholders or new shareholders helping us with the share price a little bit. We'll definitely use that to raise more money to follow up more aggressively.
Right. And working in Guinea, West Africa is obviously famous gold producing region. Whether it be Senegal, Mali, Sierra Leone, Ghana, where it's famous for its gold. You're just hunting gold. Are there any other kind of byproducts in this, or is it just purely gold?
No, it's purely gold.
Right.
Gold in West Africa, in the Birimian, is purely about gold.
Okay.
I don't know of any other deposits that have a byproduct in the gold space in West Africa.
Right. Okay. What about working in Guinea then? You've worked there before?
This is my first project, but I've been coming to visit here for quite some time now. I've worked in the neighboring countries extensively. It's actually quite similar. The mining code is somewhat similar. Infrastructure is somewhat similar. And the people vary from the region to region, but essentially also quite similar.
Right.
So it's familiar territory, geologically, as well as the regulars. So I find it very good to work there. You have an exploration permit, and that allows you to go and drill.
Right.
Many other jurisdictions, you're looking at 3 to 9 months to permit just to put a few drill holes down. Here we have our permits, we can go and drill.
Right, and obviously it's a well-known mining jurisdiction, Guinea, up in the north. You're near Mali. We've had companies come on here and talk about some of the difficulties being experienced in Mali. Is so far, it's early days here, but was that sort of part of your decision making, so trying to understand this sort of the security component of being able to work and explore in Guinea?
Yes, Guinea, we liked it because, yes, it doesn't have the same security issues that some of the countries to the north have. It has a prospective geology, and it's probably, the ground is probably less contested than some of the other countries, like Senegal or Ivory Coast, where people have been looking for a long time. And the ground's heavily held, and there's a lot of competition for the project. So Guinea has kind of only recently come onto the investment community's radar screen, so to speak, both on the ASX but also in Canada.
Right.
You're probably aware of that ASX discovery by Predictive Discovery. 3.6 million ounces.
Yeah. We've had them on the show a few times, and they went from zero to hero very, very quickly overnight off the back of that, for sure. The other aspect to this is you've gone and IPO'd right in the middle of what is a pretty difficult time for commodities broadly, let alone precious metals. Again, with the timing of that, was it a case of you started a process, so you just went through with it, or you think, well, is there ever a good time to IPO a company?
Well, when we started it was actually quite a good time, and we were supposed to, our intention was to finish this listing probably 2 or 3 months earlier. The money we had actually raised, quite a few months before that, but it took longer than anticipated to complete all the work to get the official listing done, which is unfortunate, but that's what happened.
Yeah. No. I don't think it's ever a right answer per se, but we've heard companies who have put off listings because they just thought, one, the money's going to be quite expensive, and two, no one's going to be looking in here. But I think your team's got quite a good reputation because it makes life a lot easier. Right. Well, look, Martin, I appreciate you coming on and actually letting us know that you're up and running, and more importantly, you've got the money to get after it on the ground as well. So stay in touch and let us know how you get on. Okay.
Great, Matt. Thanks for that. It's been good to speak to you, and look forward to updating you as we make progress.